Hi everyone, welcome to this video. And in this video, I'm starting a basic Python course. Especially the course is for all those people who actually want to get into the data science, especially for the college student or the freshers who actually are starting to get into the data science right now. So I will be starting Python from very basic, and I will not talk about the bullshit thing. I will just be talking about the all those important things that will be actually helping you to code very good in Python. And in the later stage, we will see like how can actually you can build up different codes for data analysis, machine learning, and all those things. But yeah, basically, if we start with the very basic thing, we'll go to the advanced level of Python. We'll also do some typical Python problem solving, and then we will switch to the data analysis. So if you are trying to get to the data science or data analysis or something like that, this tutorial is going to be super helpful for you because I'm going to start with the recent version of Python, obviously talking about the different things that you should know. Obviously, from the very basic, if you don't have any knowledge of Python or any programming language, that is totally okay. And with this tutorial, with this set of tutorials, you are actually going to learn a lot of beautiful things, useful things for the Python, for the data analysis and all those things. So let's the our first tutorial started. Okay. So just I want to tell that we are actually going to code the whole thing into the collaboratory. So if you have not heard about the Google Colab, so this is a something called Jupyter Notebook format of Python. So you can actually access this particular thing using the Google. So what you need to do is just type Google Colab, and actually it will send you to a link where you can access the Google Collaboratory. So here you can see that there is something particular thing related to the Google Collaboratory, and what you need to do is just click on this particular new notebook. Okay, if you just click on new notebook, it will just bring you an open fresh notebook for you where you can code Python setting. Obviously there are a lot of different useful libraries of data science or data analysis or machine learning is actually by default installed in the Google Collaboratory. We will also see those things after some particular tutorials, and we will also see like how can you can set up this particular thing in your local computer if you don't have internet or something like that. How can you can set up this particular thing? So we'll see this particular thing in the later stage of this tutorial. So obviously just I want you to rename this particular thing, so maybe rename this at first tutorial, and you can just start coding. So before coding into the Google Collaboratory, let me just first tell you about the basic functionality of the Google Collaboratory. So you can see that at the top you can see that there are two things actually, code and the text. So code, here you can start writing some Python code, and text you can, if you want to write something, some paragraph or something about your code, you can write this particular thing. Okay, so let's say this, you can see that if you just click on the plus code, a less different set of blocks will start appearing in front of you. So in this particular set of blocks, you can write the different Python code. So if you write something there, some Python code here, and some Python code in the second block, and then some Python code in the third block, and you can start actually running it. So for running, you can see that there is something sign called this particular black sign that you can see here. You can just, if you just click here, it will run. So let's say we are trying to run 1 plus 2, and if you just run this particular thing, obviously there are two different things. Once you run the particular block of code, let's say we run this particular block of code, you will get the output. Okay, and what happens is that the order of code is actually defined by the order of block. Let's say if you are running the second block first and then the first block, then this particular second block of code will be understood as the first sequence in the program. So we will get this particular thing when we'll start with the coding some tutorials. And obviously just the thing that you need to keep in mind is that every time you want to code something, just click on plus code. You will get a new box of Python. You write a multiple line of code of Python, and obviously you can click on this particular sign to run this particular code. Second, if you want to add some title, some description, you can add this particular thing by clicking on this text thing. So let's say you click on this text, you can see that here you can write something. So let's say we write our first tutorial. Okay, and you can see that if you just leave this particular thing, it will be written as the first tutorial. Okay, there are a lot of different bunch of editing option also. So if you just want to edit it, just click on this particular icon, and if you want to make it bold or want to write some title or something like that, you can always do that. So we'll also discuss this particular thing when we'll just go through the Python tutorial. So let's start our first tutorial. So every time you want to code something, just need to open the Google Colab and click on this particular thing, file, and open new notebook. So you can also open the new notebook from here, and the new notebook will appear from your in your browser. So let's start some basic code of Python so that we actually start with our first tutorial. So I'm actually going to explain you, start from very basic and then go till the advanced level. So let's start code the particular thing. What you can do is, just when you are watching this particular tutorial, you can open the Google Colab in your browser, and you can obviously can code alongside with the tutorial. So the first particular thing is, like every time any programming language you start, you want to print some message. To print some message, actually there is a command in Python. I will actually start with printing some message, then actually we'll go towards the data types of the Python, and then actually go towards the having some operations on these data types, and then we actually go towards the conditional and loops and all those things, if else and loops and all those things. Okay, and then we'll go to the function, and then we'll start with the data analysis with Python. So just this path will start to follow, and obviously if you just stick to the path, actually your programming Python programming is going to be very good, and that's the promise from my side. Okay, so let's start this particular thing. And if you want to print any message in Python, what the thing that you need to write is that there is a keyword called print. So first thing is that whatever the keywords you are writing in the Python, let's say you are writing print or anything, everything will be in the small case letter. So you can see that everything is in the small case letter. It's not like we are writing print with capital P and then print. So this particular thing will not is not allowed. Whatever you are writing, this you need to write everything in the small case letter. And you can see that whenever you are writing some particular type of code, you can see that everything is written in the small case letter. So this particular thing you have to keep in mind. So print 4. So what is this particular thing? Print is a function actually, and we'll see the in the later stage like what is a function and all the different things related to the function. But for now, just don't worry about the whatever the function is. Just keep remember that the if you want to print something, just write print, and in the in this single bracket you have to write 4. Okay, so let's say you want to print the 4. So if you just run this particular thing, so running, you can either you can click on this black sign, and it will print 4 message for you. Just don't worry about whatever the code that is written below this particular thing. Just don't worry about that for this for now. Just worry about whatever the code that is written in this particular block. Okay, and I will just explain you the actually the line wise line execution of code in this particular thing, so don't worry about it. Okay, so let's say you want to print any number, not 4 only. Let's say you want to print 1002. Okay, so just write print 1002, and if you just run this particular code, it will print this particular message for you. Okay, if you want to run some particular code, if you don't need to click only this particular thing, if you just print shift enter from your keyboard altogether, it will just run this particular thing for you. Okay, so either you can click on this particular thing to run the particular code, or either you can press shift plus enter from your shift and enter together. If you just press this particular key, it will run this particular code for you. Okay, now let's say you want to print some message, not only the numbers, you want to print some message. So obviously these are the very basic thing, but we have all have to start somewhere. So if you want to print some message, what you need to do, you just use the same command print, but the thing is that here we used uh, let's say want to print some message, so we try to encode this message in some single inverted comma. Okay, so when you will encode this message in the single inverted comma, this particular message will be printed as it is given. So let's say if you just run this particular code, you can see that whatever the things that you've written in the single inverted comma, actually the same thing will be printed in the as a message for this particular thing. So whatever the thing you want to print, the simple print function will just print anything for you. Okay, but the thing is that we are not trying to print only, we are trying to calculate only, we're trying to evaluate something. So obviously you want to add some numbers, do something, some arithmetic operations, and obviously these arithmetic operations define some types of data types. So we will also see those data types, but first of now, we can see that if you want to print some message, this is the thing that you need to do. Whatever you want to do, just try to write this particular thing. If number, don't need to write in the single method comma. If you it's some string, that some string you want to print out, just write this particular thing in the single method comma, it will print it for you. Okay, the second thing is that what is the arithmetic operation. Let's say you want to add some numbers. So first of all, let's say to define any numbers, let's say you are trying to add a plus b, and let's say a is equal to 5 and b is equal to 7. Okay, so if you want to add this particular two numbers, a plus 5, which is a plus b, which is equal to 12. So here what you need to do is you need to just define the variables. So let's say here we define a is equal to 1, so this is a variable that we have defined, and b is equal to 2 that we have defined. So a is equal to 1 means especially if you just talk in terms of programming, so what this particular thing is, this is called variable initialization. Okay, so like if you are familiar with the C and C++, there we used to write something called int a. Okay, so in Python you don't need to write this particular keywords because these things don't matter here, and the only thing that you need to write is this particular a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, something like that. Okay, and the next thing that you want to do is this particular thing, if you want to print, you write A plus B. So when we write A plus B, so whatever the value of A is defined here and whatever the value of B is defined here, it is actually added A plus B, and whatever the value is, it is printed by the print function. So either you can directly print it using the print function, or obviously you can also store this particular value in some particular other variables, and actually you can print those two variables. So we'll if you just run this particular thing using the same logic, you can see that this particular answer give the 3, because here a is equal to, we are directly printing array plus b, which is where a is equal to 1, b plus b is equal to 2, and here we are printing c is equal to a plus b, and obviously we are storing the numbers in the c and trying to print the c. So this is how you can actually do the operations in the arithmetic operations in the python. So either you store the variables in these two numbers, add and directly print them, or either you can store this particular thing into some other variable and you print this particular variable. Okay, if you just want to learn the execution of code in the Colab, you can see that if you run this particular set of code, let's say you run this particular set of code, and if you run print a, you can see that in this block we have not defined a, because a was defined earlier. A was defined earlier in this particular block. Okay, and if you just print a, still a is there, because once you run this particular block of code, it is still in the memory unless the particular code is running. Okay, and if you just try to print a, b or c, if it whatever the a, b, c is there, it is still in the memory. Okay, it's still in the memory. So whatever the value of a was defined here, you can get the same value of a as 1 here. Okay, so these things you have to keep in mind while running the program in the Colab. Whatever the code you have run earlier, that code is still in the memory, and still you can access the variables. Okay, so with this same concept, you can also print a minus b, a into b, a divided by e, and if this modular integer. Okay, so let me just discuss this two particular thing: a divided by b and a double divide sign b. So this a divided by b is actually we just know that a is equal to 1 earlier and b is equal to 2. So a divided by b actually gives you the whatever the number is. Let's say if 1 divided by 2, it is actually going to be 0.5. So it give you the this particular thing, whatever the quotient is. But if you just try to do this particular double division sign, it's give you the integer. So this is called, also called the integer division. So if you do 5 integer division 2, it means that whatever when you divide the 5 by 2, so we will divide 5 by 2, you get quotient as 2, and obviously you are going to get 1 as the remainder. So it is not going to consider this particular thing by putting a point and then putting a 0 and then particular dividing things. It will only give you the whatever the integer there is. Okay, whatever the integer is, so it will not give you the decimal value, it is just going to give you the integer value. And when you give the try divide a divided by b, it will give you the whole whatever the particular division value is. So this is called the integer division, and when you divide this particular value, you are only going to get the integer. Okay, so you can see that here, if you just run this particular code, you are going to get the 5 divided by 2 is equal to 2, because it should be 2.5, but yeah, we are not going to get that. Okay, obviously you can try something like 11 divided by 2. So if you just run this particular code, obviously the result is going to 5, because not the this particular integer is going to be given. The next thing is called the power. Okay, so for power, the simplest thing is you need to write a to a star means double star b. So this particular thing is equivalent to a to the power b. Okay, so if you write a to the power b, so a is equal to 1 and b is equal to 2, so 1 square is equal to going to be 1. So that's why you're going to get the value of 1. But yeah, you can just try this particular thing with the different numbers. The only thing is that a double star b implies a to the power b, and you can see this particular thing by the different set of examples. Let's say we give here 3, and with the set of b we give here maybe let's say 4. Okay, and it is going to give you the 3 to the power 4, which is going to be the 41 81, sorry. So this is the power, this is how you can calculate the power using the uh, in Python. Okay, so at this point of time, you actually know to have some arithmetic operations in the Python, and at this point of time, let us now discuss about how can actually you can take the input from the user. Let's say till now we are defining a is equal to 1, b is equal to 2, something like that. But let's say user want to give an input of a, or user want to give an input of b. So how you can do that? So there is also option you can do this particular thing, and that is called the input function. And using the input function, you can actually take some input. So let me just explain the reasoning behind this input function, and then you will able to get this particular point. So the user input, this particular input function is actually used to take a string as the input. Okay, it is only used to take a string as the input. No integer, no float, and only the string is taken as the input. So let's say your name is something and you want to print your name, okay, and maybe you want to print some message along with your name, so you can do that, okay. So whatever you need to do, just call the input function. There is no need to give any argument here. Just call the input function, and when you run this particular code, it will ask for the input. So let's say I give my name as Nitin. Okay, and when you just try to press enter, it will take your this particular input and it will print this particular thing. My name is whatever the message you want to print, and obviously if you want to print the input here, my name is, and your input will be printed here. So my name is Nitin. So whatever the name you will give here, it will print that name. Okay, but the thing is that let's say you want to take the number as the integer or number as the input, not the string. So obviously, if you want to take the integer as the input or maybe float as the input, you can also do that. And this particular thing can be done with the help of this particular function. I don't know what this is called. So, like int, and in the is this particular thing, you have to embed the input function. If you just embed this particular input function, what it will do, if you just give this input here 2.5, or let's say we were giving here input 2, it will take the input as a string and it will convert those particular input into the integer, and it will be considered as an integer. So this is how we can actually take int as an input from the users. Okay, so what you need to do, just if you run this particular set of code, you can see that let's say it is asking for a number. So let's say we give here 10. So if you just enter the 10 and press enter, it is going to take a 10 as the input and going to add this 10 to this 56, and it is going to be the 66. Okay, so this particular thing is there, how we can actually take the integer as the input. So you can play with this particular thing, actually take multiple input as a multiple integer as input from the users, try to add those numbers or try to do something, try to compute something. And obviously till now you actually know something, at least in the Python, how to print some message, how to do some arithmetic computation, how to find the power, how to find the integer division, and obviously how to print some numbers, actually how to take the string as input and how to take integer as input. In the next tutorial we are going to actually discuss a brief about the Python data structure, mainly string, numeric, set, list, dictionary, and tuple. So I'm going to discuss all these data structures in very detail, and obviously in the later stage of this tutorial I'm going to discuss this particular thing step by step in the separate tutorial, so that you will have a in-depth knowledge about the set, list, dictionary, and tuple. Because a lot of time when you sit for the data science interview, or obviously in your data science job, also data science work also, you are going to use this particular data set a lot of times. Okay, so it's best to use this particular thing as good as you can. And in the next tutorial we are going to see about the Python data types. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you in the next video.